300 Hells Angels came to protect child being abused by his trainer. Morning air was crisp at Valley Youth Boxing Gym when 12-year-old Marcus Williams stepped through the doors for what he didn't know would be his last training session with coach Vincent "Vince" Rodriguez. Marcus had been training at the gym for 8 months, dreaming of following in his late father's footsteps as a professional boxer. What started as tough but fair coaching had gradually turned into something much darker. Vince had begun singling Marcus out for special training sessions that involved psychological and physical abuse disguised as discipline. The sessions grew increasingly violent, with Vince claiming Marcus needed to be tougher if he wanted to honor his father's memory. Marcus's mother, Carmen, worked at Desert Rose Diner, a popular truck stop on Highway 95, frequented by bikers traveling between Las Vegas and Los Angeles. She had noticed troubling changes in her son, unexplained bruises, nightmares, and a growing reluctance to attend training despite his previous passion for boxing. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening when Marcus arrived at the diner, with a black eye and split lip that Vince had given him during a sparring session. Carmen found her son crying in the parking lot. Too ashamed to come inside, he said, "If I tell anyone, he'll make sure I never box again," Marcus whispered through tears. "He said Dad would be disappointed in me for being weak." Carmen's heart shattered. She had worked double shifts to pay for Marcus's training, believing it would keep him off the streets and honor his father's memory. Now she felt helpless against a system that seemed to protect the abuser. That evening, Road Captain Steele Martinez of the Desert Serpents MC was having coffee at the diner when he noticed Carmen's distress. Steele had lost his own son in military service and had a soft spot for struggling families. "You look like you're carrying the world on your shoulders, Carmen," Steele said gently. "Sometimes talking to a stranger helps." Through tears, Carmen found herself telling Steele about Marcus's situation. She explained how Vince had isolated her son, convinced other parents that his methods were necessary, and intimidated anyone who questioned his techniques. Steele's expression hardened as he listened. Around the counter, other bikers, members of various clubs who regularly stopped at the diner, grew quiet. These weren't just riders. They were fathers, uncles, and grandfathers who understood the sacred trust between a coach and a young athlete. "Nobody breaks a kid's spirit on our watch," Steele said quietly. Nobody. By morning, word had spread through the Brotherhood's vast network. Chapters from across the Southwest began converging on the small desert town. They came from Phoenix, Tucson, San Diego, and Riverside. By 8 a.m., nearly 300 Hells Angels and allied clubs had assembled in the parking lot of Desert Rose Diner. The sight was unprecedented. Hundreds of motorcycles lined the highway, their engines rumbling like thunder. The bikers themselves presented an imposing wall of leather, chrome, and unwavering determination. They weren't there to cause trouble. They were there to protect a child. Steele approached the gym owner, Frank Delacroix, who stood pale-faced in his office, watching the massive gathering through his window. "We're here about Marcus Williams," Steele announced calmly. "That boy doesn't spend another minute alone with Vince Rodriguez. Not today, not ever." Frank, overwhelmed by the situation, immediately called the athletic commission and local authorities. Within an hour, an emergency meeting was called, with gym officials, parents, and law enforcement. But the bikers had done their homework overnight. Through their own networks and connections, they had discovered that 3 other young fighters had previously made complaints about Vince's methods. Parents had been told their children were too soft for competitive boxing, and complaints were dismissed or covered up. Detective Sarah Kim, who specialized in child abuse cases, arrived to find 300 bikers maintaining a peaceful but vigilant presence outside the gym. She had heard about similar situations where motorcycle clubs had intervened to protect children. "We have evidence of systematic abuse," Steele informed the detective, handing over a folder compiled by the bikers' own investigation. Photos, witness statements, medical records. "This man has been terrorizing kids for months." The evidence was overwhelming. Photos showed Marcus and other young fighters with injuries that went far beyond normal training accidents. Witness statements from other gym members described Vince's increasingly violent behavior and psychological manipulation tactics. As news crews arrived, the story began to spread rapidly across social media. The image of 300 leather-clad bikers standing guard to protect an abused young athlete captured hearts nationwide. The hashtag #ProtectTheKids began trending within hours. Dr. Michael Chen, a sports psychologist who volunteered to evaluate Marcus, was struck by the boy's condition. This child has been systematically broken down by someone he trusted. The psychological damage is severe, but the fact that an entire community rallied to protect him shows him he's not alone. The investigation revealed the full scope of Vince's abuse. He had been using his position to intimidate and assault young fighters for over 2 years. Parents who questioned his methods were told their children would be blacklisted from competition. The gym's insurance company immediately suspended coverage pending investigation. Vince Rodriguez was arrested on multiple charges of child abuse, assault, and intimidation. The Athletic Commission launched a full investigation into the gym's practices and oversight procedures. Several other coaches at affiliated gyms were also suspended pending review. 3 weeks later, Marcus stood before the assembled crowd of bikers at their monthly charity ride. His mother stood beside him as he addressed his protectors, his voice growing stronger with each word. "I thought I had to be tough all by myself," Marcus said, looking out at the sea of leather vests and weathered faces. "But you showed me that real strength comes from people who protect each other. You saved me from someone who was supposed to make me stronger, but was really making me broken." Steele knelt down and presented Marcus with an honorary patch, not for membership, but for courage. "You're the toughest fighter I know, kid. You spoke up when it mattered most, and that takes more guts than any ring could ever test." The impact rippled through the boxing community nationwide. The case led to new mandatory reporting requirements for youth athletics programs and stricter background checks for trainers. Several other abusive coaches were exposed and prosecuted as victims found the courage to speak out. Carmen Williams became an advocate for youth athletic safety, working with the bikers to establish a reporting hotline for abused young athletes. The Desert Rose Diner became an unofficial headquarters for the movement, with riders from across the country stopping by to check on Marcus and support the family. Marcus thrived under new coaching at a properly supervised gym. His natural talent, freed from fear and intimidation, blossomed rapidly. He began competing in sanctioned tournaments, dedicating each victory to his father's memory and his biker protectors. 6 months later, Marcus won his first regional championship. As he stood on the podium receiving his gold medal, 50 bikers in the audience stood and applauded. The image of the young champion pointing to his protectors became another viral moment, showing the world what real mentorship looked like. Vince Rodriguez was sentenced to 8 years in prison and banned from any involvement in youth athletics. During his sentencing, the judge specifically noted the courage of the motorcycle clubs who had stepped forward to protect vulnerable children. The annual Desert Thunder Rally became a fundraising event for youth athletic safety programs. What started as a weekend ride had evolved into a powerful force for protecting young athletes from predatory coaches and trainers. 1 year after that terrible morning, Marcus rode on the back of Steele's motorcycle in the charity parade, wearing a small leather vest with Desert Serpent's little warrior embroidered on the back. He waved to the cheering crowd, a symbol of resilience and the power of community protection. The story of 300 bikers protecting one abused young boxer became more than news. It became a call to action for everyone involved in youth sports to prioritize children's safety over winning at any cost. This incredible story of courage and community continues to inspire athletes and protectors worldwide. For more amazing stories of ordinary people doing extraordinary things and updates on Marcus's boxing journey, make sure to follow our channel. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because every young athlete deserves mentors who build them up, not tear them down. Together, We can create sports programs where kids are safe to chase their dreams.